Hi everybody, I'm going to give it a try as to screen record our lesson today. So what I wanted to go over with you are some arthropods, specifically just crustaceans today. So I hope you guys have had a good spring break and I hope that you guys are well. And I'll go ahead and get started. So arthropod actually means jointed feet. So all the animals in this group have jointed legs or arms or etc. And then they're also known by an exoskeleton. So remember, an exoskeleton, exo means on the outside. So these are basically all the things that have shell on the outside, and that material is called chitin. That's why like bugs go crunch when you step on them. So the exoskeleton obviously is for protection. It also lets their muscles attach to them, and then it helps them from drying out, especially our marine species here. So something I want you to realize about the arthropods, it is the largest group of animals. They say 84% of all the animals on the planet are actually an arthropod, and there are over 1 million species. So guys, that's not 1 million arthropods, that's 1 million different kinds of species. And before you think that no, that can't be true, just think about how many fire ants are in one hill. So they say that arthropods outnumber humans 1 million to 1. And I actually believe that if you think about that fire ant example. So one of the disadvantages of having your skeleton on the outside of you is that you can't grow that way. So in order for them to grow, they have to molt first. And that's when they shed their skeleton to grow. So if you guys have eaten soft-shell crabs, that's a perfect example of that. Or if you found those locust skeletons like on trees and fence posts and things like that. So that's what molting is. Okay, so the group that I want to go over today, the class, are the crustaceans. So all crustaceans actually have a couple things in common. They have a cephalothorax, which is basically a head and chest region that is fused, and typically that is covered by the part of the exoskeleton that's called a carapace. And when you guys do that dissection online, you'll see her cut that off, and you can see what I'm talking about. So crustaceans are all decapods, which of course deca meaning 10. They have 5 pairs of legs. Now some of them are for walking, some of them are for grabbing food, and I'll show you all that in just a minute. Some of them even have additional little legs called swimmerets, which they're little paddle-like appendages for swimming, and you'll see that in that dissection video in just a minute. Okay, so here are some typical structures here. The claws, the fancy word for that is a cheliped. That's what they use to seize their food and to protect themselves. If one is broken off, it typically does grow back, so they are capable of regeneration. They have antennae for sensing the world, and these are called antennules. So these kind of sense where food's around them, and then the chelipeds bring the food into the mouth. Their eye is compound, which is kind of like on a stalk, so they can see around them very well. Here's your walking legs. The abdomen, which is like the belly region, and this part down here, of course, is the tail that helps him steer. Okay, so if we kind of do this together really quickly, the 2 main regions, remember, are the cephalothorax and the abdomen. So I'll put those things in. Okay, and then this part of the shell, which protects the gills and some organs and things, is called the carapace. And that's also on a turtle too, and we'll talk about that when we get to reptiles. Here's its little swimmerets that it uses to swim. Antenna for sensing. The fancy word for the claws, the cheliped. And of course, these are the legs that it walks around on. Okay. All right, so the first group of crustaceans I want to talk about are lobsters. They are actually very aggressive. They're predators and they're scavengers, so they'll go around and eat things that are dead or dying. They have gills. They have a 1-chambered heart with open circulation, so that basically means their blood is not in vessels like ours is. It just kind of pours over the organs. And their blood truly is blue, unlike what people have told you about our blood. They have sexual reproduction, so they're separate separate male and female species, and they fertilize internally, but they develop externally. So here's a female, And all this black stuff are basically fertilized eggs, and she carries them around until they hatch. Okay, so the next group are crabs. They're very similar, but they don't have a tail, obviously. They mostly scavenge. They carry large numbers of offspring. This is called an egg mass or an egg sponge, so this one's female here. And again, internal fertilization, external development. And you can always turn a crab over and see if it's a male or a female. And this one does go with exactly what you expect. This is the male and this is the female. So her appendage here is a lot larger simply because she carries that egg mass there. Okay, all right, so here is just some examples of arthropods that you guys have probably seen before. Fiddler crabs are very common along our beaches. Hermit crabs, you know, they don't have their exoskeleton on their belly, and so that's why they find an empty snail shell. And then mole crabs are very common on our coast. Okay, and the last group that I want to show you today are the other crustaceans: shrimp, copepods, krill, amphipods, isopods, and barnacles. So you guys may have experienced barnacles on the edge of piers or on the bottom of your boats or different things, and they can actually damage them. But the organism itself is down inside that hard external shell. Okay, so what I'd like for y'all to do now is work on the other assignments that I've attached with this video, and then we will work on the other arthropods another day. So I hope you guys are well. I do miss you. Just remember, I'm an email away if you ever need anything.